Captain Jake Morrison walked across the bridge of the UES Defiance, his boots making soft clicking sounds on the metal floor. The ship was quiet, almost too quiet for his liking. In 3 hours, they would either make history or become another failed experiment floating in space. "Captain, all systems are showing green," said Chief Engineer Lisa Park from her station. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel, checking readings that most people couldn't understand. Lisa had spent 5 years of her life building the engine that sat in the belly of their ship. Most scientists called it impossible. Some called it crazy. Lisa called it humanity's only hope. Jake looked out the main window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Dominion was waiting. The alien empire had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years, longer than human civilization had existed. They controlled every trade route, every planet worth having, and most importantly, they controlled faster-than-light travel. "Sir, we're getting another message from Earth Command," said Communications Officer Danny Wells. His young face looked worried. Jake understood why. The message would be the same as all the others. "Put it through, Danny." The voice of Admiral Patricia Hayes filled the bridge. "Captain Morrison, this is your final authorization check. Are you certain the Defiance is ready for this test?" Jake looked around at his crew. These 23 people had volunteered for a mission that everyone expected to fail. They all knew the risks. The experimental drive had never been tested at full power. The math said it would work, but math had been wrong before. "Admiral, we're as ready as we'll ever be," Jake replied. "The crew is prepared, and Engineer Park confirms all systems are operational." There was a pause from Earth. Jake could imagine the tension in the command center. 30 days ago, the Dominion had delivered their ultimatum. Humanity had expanded too far, grown too fast. The outer colonies had to be abandoned, or the entire human race would face destruction. Earth's government had tried to negotiate, but the Dominion didn't negotiate with species they considered inferior. "Understood, Captain. Good luck to all of you. Earth is counting on you." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence again. Jake sat in his captain's chair and looked at his crew. They were good people, all of them. Lisa Park had given up a comfortable job on Earth to build an impossible engine. Danny Wells was fresh out of the academy, but had volunteered immediately when he heard about the mission. Navigation Officer Ben Taylor had 30 years of experience and could have retired, but he wanted to be part of something that mattered. "Lisa, how long until we can begin the jump sequence?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her instruments again. 2 hours and 47 minutes, Captain. "I want to run one more full diagnostic on the core systems." Jake nodded. The Morrison drive, as the scientists had named it, was unlike anything ever built. Traditional faster-than-light drives worked by creating a bubble around the ship and moving that bubble through space. It was efficient but limited. The fastest Dominion ships could cross the galaxy in about 6 months. Lisa's design was different. Instead of moving through space, it bent space around the ship. The theory suggested it could make distance meaningless. A trip that took weeks might take minutes. The problem was that every physicist who looked at the plan said it violated the basic laws of physics. "Captain," Ben called from his station, "I'm tracking a Dominion patrol ship about 2 light-years away. Long-range sensors show it's one of their standard cruisers." Jake wasn't surprised. The Dominion had been watching human space more closely since the ultimatum. They probably knew about the Defiance and its mission. Let them watch, he thought. If the test failed, it wouldn't matter. If it succeeded, they would learn soon enough. "Any change in their course, Ben?" "No, sir, they're maintaining standard patrol pattern." "They don't seem concerned about us," that made sense. One human ship against the might of the Dominion fleet was like an ant, challenging an elephant. The Dominion had destroyed entire civilizations that tried to resist them. They had weapons that could crack planets and ships the size of cities. What could one experimental human vessel do against that? Jake stood up and walked to Lisa's engineering station. The drive controls looked like a combination of computer terminal and art project. Cables and wires ran everywhere, connecting devices that hummed and glowed with soft light. "Tell me honestly, Lisa," Jake said quietly. "What do you think our chances are?" Lisa stopped working and looked at him. Her eyes were tired but determined. "Captain, I've run the calculations 1,000 times. The theory is sound. The materials are right. The power systems can handle the load. If I'm wrong about how space works, we'll probably die. But if I'm right, if I'm right, we're about to prove that the Dominion has been wrong about physics for 12,000 years. Jake smiled. That was what he liked about Lisa. She didn't make small plans. The next 2 hours passed slowly. The crew ran system checks, reviewed emergency procedures, and tried not to think about what would happen if the drive exploded instead of engaging. Jake spent the time walking through the ship, talking to his people, making sure everyone was ready. The Defiance wasn't a warship. It was built for testing, with heavy shields and backup systems but no weapons. If they encountered trouble, their only option would be to run. That was fine with Jake. They weren't here to fight. They were here to change everything. "Captain to the bridge," Lisa's voice came over the ship's communication system. "We're ready to begin the jump sequence." Jake made his way back to the bridge. His crew was at their stations, faces focused but calm. These were professionals who knew their jobs. "All right, everyone," Jake said, settling into his captain's chair. "This is what we came here to do. Lisa, begin the startup sequence." Lisa's hands moved over her controls. Deep in the ship, the Morrison drive began to wake up. Jake could feel it through the deck plates, a vibration that seemed to make the air itself hum. "Drive core coming online," Lisa reported. "Power levels rising steadily. All safety systems show green." On the main screen, space began to look different. The stars seemed to shift and dance as if reality itself was becoming unstable. "Captain," Ben said, his voice tight with excitement. "I'm reading spatial distortions around the ship. Whatever we're doing, it's working." Jake gripped his chair arms. In a few minutes, they would know if humanity had a future among the stars, or if they would become just another extinct species in the Dominion's long history of conquest. Engage the drive. Lisa, the universe changed. The Defiance emerged from the jump in a flash of twisted light. Captain Jake Morrison felt his stomach settle as normal space returned around them. The bridge was quiet except for the soft beeping of instruments checking their new location. "Report," Jake said, though he could barely believe they were still alive. Navigation Officer Ben Taylor stared at his screen, then looked at it again. His face had gone completely pale. "Captain, according to these readings, we've traveled 47 light years in 53 minutes. The bridge fell silent. Jake blinked, trying to understand what Ben had just said. The fastest Dominion ships took 3 days to cover that distance. The best human ships using borrowed Dominion technology took almost a week. "Ben, run those numbers again," Jake said. "I've run them 6 times, sir. We're in the Kepler 442 system. That's 47.3 light years from our starting point. Our jump lasted 53 minutes and 12 seconds. Chief Engineer Lisa Park was checking her own instruments. Her hands moved quickly over the controls, her excitement barely contained. "Captain, the drive performed exactly as the theory predicted. We didn't just break their speed records, we shattered them." Jake stood up and walked to Ben's station. The star charts clearly showed their location. They had jumped farther in less than an hour than most ships could travel in days. If this was real, if the drive could do this consistently, then everything had just changed. "Danny, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we've arrived safely at Kepler 442, and that all systems are functioning normally." Communications Officer Danny Wells looked confused. "Sir, how do I explain the travel time?" "Tell them the truth. We made the trip in 53 minutes. While Danny composed the message, Jake walked over to Lisa's engineering station. The drive core was still humming softly, its energy readings stable and strong. "Lisa, what exactly did we just do?" Lisa pulled up a display showing the space around their ship during the jump. "Captain, we didn't move through space the way other ships do. We convinced space to move around us. Look at these readings." The display showed waves and curves that Jake didn't understand, but Lisa's excitement was clear. Traditional faster-than-light travel works by creating a bubble around the ship and pushing that bubble through normal space. "It's like swimming through thick water. Our drive doesn't swim through space. It changes the shape of space itself. We made the distance between our starting point and here temporarily smaller." Jake tried to understand. "So we didn't really go faster than light? In a way, we never moved at all. We compressed the space in front of us and expanded the space behind us. From our perspective, we just sat still while the universe rearranged itself around us." Before Jake could ask more questions, Danny called out from his station. "Captain, I'm picking up a signal. It's Dominion frequency, but the transmission is strange." "Put it on screen, Danny." The main display showed a Dominion patrol cruiser, but something was wrong with the image. It flickered and jumped, as if the signal couldn't decide where the ship actually was. "Unknown vessel," came the alien voice through the speakers. "Identify yourself immediately. Our sensors show impossible readings from your position." Jake looked at his crew. The Dominion ship was the same one Ben had detected before their jump. It must have followed them, but clearly something had gone wrong with their pursuit. "This is Captain Morrison of the Earth vessel Defiance. We are conducting peaceful scientific research." There was a long pause before the Dominion responded. "Earth vessel, our instruments cannot establish your exact location. You appear to be in 3 different positions simultaneously. Explain this phenomenon." Lisa was grinning at her station. She whispered to Jake, "Captain, we're still partially out of phase with normal space. The jump left us slightly unstuck from regular physics. To their sensors, we probably look like ghosts." Jake made a decision. "Dominion vessel, we are testing new propulsion technology. We pose no threat to your ship. Earth vessel, you will shut down your drive and prepare to be boarded for inspection." Jake looked at Lisa, who shook her head quickly. "Captain, if they get a look at our drive, they'll understand what we've done. More importantly, I don't think we can shut it down completely right now. We're still resonating with the space distortions we created. Ben, plot a course back to Earth. Lisa, can we make another jump?" "Yes, sir, but we'll be even more out of phase when we arrive. The effect seems to build up with each use." "Do it." The Dominion ship was moving toward them now, but slowly, as if its crew wasn't sure exactly where to aim. Jake could see why. On their own sensors, the Defiance appeared to flicker in and out of existence. "Dominion vessel, we are departing. Thank you for your concern. Earth vessel, you will remain in position. We are activating tractor beams." Jake watched the energy readings on his screen. The Dominion ship was trying to grab them with invisible force fields. But the beams passed right through the Defiance without effect. "Lisa, execute the jump now." Space twisted again, and the Defiance disappeared. The jump back to Earth took only 31 minutes, even though they covered the same distance. When they arrived in Earth's solar system, their ship was completely invisible to normal sensors. Only by using special equipment designed to detect spatial distortions could Earth Command track their position. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, Earth's top physicist, was waiting for them when they docked at the orbital research station. She came aboard immediately and went straight to Lisa's engineering section. "Show me everything," Dr. Rodriguez said. "I need to understand what you've built." For the next 6 hours, Lisa and Dr. Rodriguez went through every detail of the drive design. Meanwhile, Jake reported to Earth Command about their encounter with the Dominion Patrol. Admiral Hayes listened to his report with growing amazement. "Captain, are you telling me that their tractor beam couldn't affect your ship?" "That's correct, Admiral. We seem to exist in normal space and somewhere else at the same time. Their weapons and sensors couldn't get a solid lock on us." Admiral Hayes was quiet for a long moment. "Captain, if what you're describing is accurate, this changes everything. The Dominion's technological advantage has always been their control of faster-than-light travel and their superior weapons. If we can move faster than them and their weapons can't touch us..." Jake nodded. "Admiral, I think we just learned that humanity doesn't have to surrender to the Dominion. We might have just found a way to fight back." By the time Dr. Rodriguez finished her analysis, her face showed the same excitement that Lisa had displayed all day. "Captain Morrison," Dr. Rodriguez said, "your engineer has discovered something that our best scientists missed. The Dominion has been using faster-than-light technology for thousands of years, but they've been doing it the hard way. They've been fighting against the basic structure of space instead of working with it." "What does that mean for us?" Jake asked. "It means that every assumption about space travel, about physics, about what's possible and what's impossible, needs to be reconsidered. If Lisa is right about how space works, then we're not just better than the Dominion. We're operating on principles they don't even understand." Jake looked out at the stars through the station's observation window. Somewhere out there, the Dominion Empire was preparing to destroy humanity for refusing to surrender. They had no idea that their prey had just learned to rewrite the laws of physics. The hunt was about to become very interesting. Emperor Carthun stood in the command center of his flagship, looking at reports that made no sense. The massive alien ruler had seen the rise and fall of 100 civilizations, but nothing had prepared him for what his scouts were telling him about the humans. "Science Officer Kelnoth," the Emperor said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "explained to me again how one primitive human ship outran our fastest patrol cruiser." Kelnoth's tentacles writhed nervously as he accessed his datapad. Your Majesty, the human vessel didn't simply outrun our ship. According to sensor logs, it appeared to exist in multiple locations simultaneously, before disappearing entirely. That's impossible. Our physics don't allow for such phenomena. Yes, Your Majesty, that's what concerns our science division. Either our instruments malfunctioned, or the humans have developed technology that operates outside our understanding of reality. Emperor Carthun turned to Admiral Zixathera, who commanded the Dominion's war fleets. Admiral, how many ships do we have available for immediate deployment? 200 capital ships can be mobilized within one standard day, Your Majesty. Our intelligence suggests the humans have fewer than 50 ships capable of interstellar travel. Good. Deploy all 200 ships to human space. If these creatures have stumbled upon some new technology, we must eliminate them before they can share it with other species. What the Emperor didn't know was that humanity had been busy. Dr. Amy Rodriguez and Chief Engineer Lisa Park had spent 3 days creating simplified plans for the Morrison Drive. These plans were already being transmitted to every human colony and Earth's major shipyards on the industrial world of New Ceres. Engineer Carl Weber stared at the drive specifications that had just arrived from Earth. The mining colony had 12 large cargo ships and about 50 smaller vessels. None of them were designed for combat, but Carl had an idea. Maria, he called to his assistant Sandra Kim, how long would it take to install these drive units in our ore haulers? Sandra studied the plans. If we work around the clock and don't worry about making it pretty, maybe 4 days per ship. The power requirements are huge, but our mining ships have the strongest generators in human space. Start immediately. Convert every ship we have. Similar scenes were playing out across human territory. On Earth, the luxury liner Star Princess was being retrofitted with a Morrison drive. On the research station Kepler base, scientists were installing the drive in everything from shuttlecraft to deep space probes. The first test came sooner than anyone expected. Dominion Admiral Vexcolan arrived at New Ceres with 50 destroyers, expecting to find a defenseless mining colony. Instead, he found 12 converted ore haulers waiting in formation. Commander Rick Davis had never expected to command a military operation. 3 days earlier, he had been a cargo pilot hauling asteroid ore to processing plants. Now he sat in the pilot's seat of the converted freighter Hercules, leading New Ceres defense. All ships, this is Rick, he said over the communication channel. Remember, these drives are still experimental. Don't push them beyond safe limits and watch for spatial distortions. The Dominion fleet approached in standard attack formation. Admiral Vexcolan sent the usual surrender demand, expecting the humans to submit immediately. Instead, he received a simple message. New Ceres declines your offer. Fire on the mining ships, Admiral Vexcolan ordered. Destroy them as an example. The Dominion destroyers opened fire with their plasma cannons. The energy beams that should have vaporized the human ships passed harmlessly through empty space. The ore haulers had simply vanished. Admiral, his sensor officer reported, the human vessels have disappeared from all scanning frequencies. Find them. Before the Dominion ships could locate their targets, the converted haulers reappeared behind the alien fleet. The Hercules and her sister ships weren't armed with military weapons, but they carried something just as dangerous. Mining charges designed to break apart asteroids. Rick pressed his firing controls, and the Hercules launched a spread of mining explosives directly into the engine section of the nearest Dominion destroyer. The charges, designed to crack solid rock, tore through the alien ship's hull like paper. Across the battle space, 11 other ore haulers were doing the same thing. They would appear behind a Dominion ship, launch their mining charges, then vanish before return fire could reach them. Admiral Vexcolan watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart by what should have been helpless cargo ships. The human vessels moved like ghosts, phasing in and out of existence, striking from impossible angles. All ships, concentrate fire on the largest human vessel, he ordered desperately. 50 Dominion destroyers turned their weapons toward the Hercules. Energy beams from every direction converged on Rick's position, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The beams passed through empty space. The Hercules had moved sideways through dimensions that the Dominion sensors couldn't detect. This is impossible, Admiral Vexcolan whispered. How are they doing this? Rick heard the transmission and decided to answer. Admiral, we're not doing anything special. We're just using space the way it was meant to be used. Within 2 hours, the entire Dominion fleet was either destroyed or fleeing. Not a single human ship had been damaged. The converted ore haulers had moved through the battle like they were dancing through empty space, untouchable and unstoppable. News of the victory spread quickly. On Earth, Admiral Hayes received Rick's battle report with amazement. "Commander Davis, are you telling me that 12 converted cargo ships defeated 50 Dominion destroyers without taking any damage?" "Yes, ma'am," Rick replied. "The Morrison drive doesn't just make us faster. It makes us exist in spaces they can't reach. Their weapons can't hit what isn't completely there." The news reached Emperor Carthun within hours. Science Officer Kelnoth delivered the report personally, his tentacles trembling with fear. "Your Majesty, we've lost the entire advance fleet at New Ceres. 50 ships destroyed by 12 human cargo vessels." "Cargo vessels? How is that possible?" "The humans appear to have installed their new drive technology in civilian ships. These vessels can phase in and out of normal space at will. Our weapons cannot achieve target lock." Emperor Carthun was quiet for a long time. In 12,000 years of Dominion rule, no single species had ever defeated a major fleet with civilian ships. The implications were staggering. "Science Officer, in your professional opinion, what are we dealing with?" Kelnoth's voice was barely above a whisper. "Your Majesty, I believe the humans have discovered aspects of physics that we have overlooked for millennia. Their technology doesn't just exceed ours. It operates on principles we don't understand. And if other species learn these principles, then everything changes, Your Majesty. If the humans are correct about the nature of space and time, then every species in the galaxy might be capable of similar breakthroughs." Emperor Carthun looked out at the stars surrounding his homeworld. For 12,000 years, the Dominion had maintained control through superior technology and the belief that their understanding of physics was absolute. Now a young species that had barely learned to travel between stars was proving that everything the Dominion thought they knew might be wrong. "Send a message to all fleet commanders," the Emperor ordered. "Full mobilization. Every available ship is to converge on human space. If we cannot contain this knowledge, it will spread throughout the galaxy." "Your Majesty," Kelnoth said carefully, "what if we're already too late?" The Emperor had no answer. Across the galaxy, species that had been subjugated by the Dominion for thousands of years were receiving reports of humanity's victory. For the first time in millennia, the impossible seemed possible. The empire that had ruled through absolute certainty was beginning to shake. Dr. Kevin Lane stood in his laboratory on Earth, surrounded by equations that had kept him awake for 6 straight days. The physicist was trying to understand something that should have been impossible. Why humanity's faster-than-light drive worked when all known science said it shouldn't. "Maria, look at this," he called to his colleague, Dr. Maria Santos. She came over to examine the holographic display showing space-time measurements from the Defiance's test flights. "These readings show that space isn't behaving the way the Dominion science books say it should," Kevin explained. "According to their physics, space-time has fixed properties that can't be changed. But our drive is changing those properties." Maria studied the data carefully. She had spent years learning Dominion physics from captured textbooks and ship computers. "Kevin, what if the Dominion is wrong? What if they've been building their science around incorrect assumptions?" "That's exactly what I'm thinking. Look at these calculations." Kevin brought up a new display showing mathematical formulas that covered the entire wall. "The Dominion treats space like a solid thing that resists change. They fight against it to achieve faster-than-light travel. But what if space is more like water? What if it wants to flow and change shape?" "That would explain why our drive works so well," Maria said, her excitement growing. "We're not fighting against space. We're asking it to help us." Their breakthrough came when they realized that the Dominion had spent 12,000 years building technology based on limiting principles. They had decided that certain things were impossible and built their entire understanding of physics around those limitations. Humanity, approaching the problem with fresh eyes and no preconceptions, had discovered that space-time was far more flexible than anyone had imagined. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the effects of humanity's discovery were spreading. On the world of Nexar Prime, a species called the Zelani had been subjects of the Dominion for 8,000 years. They had always been skilled engineers, but Dominion law prevented them from developing their own faster-than-light. Technology engineer Zextar received the technical specifications that Captain Jake Morrison had, transmitted to all known civilizations. The message was simple. To all beings who desire freedom, these are the principles behind our faster-than-light drive. Use them to liberate yourselves. Zextar studied the human designs with growing amazement. The Zilani had always suspected that space could be manipulated in ways the Dominion claimed were impossible. Now they had proof. Within days, the first Zilani ship equipped with a modified human drive made its maiden voyage. The test was successful beyond their wildest hopes. Not only could they travel faster than Dominion vessels, but they discovered that their natural understanding of energy flows made them even better at space manipulation than humans. Similar scenes played out across dozens of worlds. The Arcani, who had been enslaved for 6,000 years, found that their crystalline technology could enhance the human drive designs. The Voltar discovered that their bioengineering skills could create living drives that grew stronger with each use. Emperor Carthun received reports of these developments with growing horror. His science minister Vexilon delivered the news in the imperial throne room. Your Majesty, we now have confirmed reports of 17 species successfully replicating human drive technology. 3 of them have achieved performance levels that exceed even human capabilities. How is this possible? The Emperor demanded. These species have been under our control for millennia. They don't have the knowledge to build advanced technology. That's just it, Your Majesty. They do have the knowledge. They always had it. Our laws prevented them from using it, and our science told them it was impossible. The humans have shown them that our science was wrong. Emperor Carthun stood and walked to the great window overlooking his capital city. For 12,000 years, this view had represented the center of galactic civilization. Now he wondered if he was looking at the capital of a dying empire. Science Minister, in your professional opinion, how many species in the galaxy might be capable of duplicating human technology? Vexilon's reply was barely above a whisper. All of them, Your Majesty. If the human understanding of physics is correct, then every intelligent species should be capable of space-time manipulation. We've been suppressing natural abilities that all advanced civilizations develop. The Emperor closed his eyes. The implications were staggering. The Dominion's entire power structure was based on their monopoly over faster-than-light travel. If every species could develop their own drives, and if those drives could outperform Dominion technology, then the Empire's 12,000-year reign was over. On Earth, Captain Morrison and the crew of the Defiance were preparing for their most ambitious mission yet. Intelligence reports showed that the Dominion was massing their entire fleet for a final assault on human space. Over 1,000 ships were converging on the Dominion capital world, preparing to launch the largest military operation in galactic history. Captain, Chief Engineer Lisa Park said, I've been studying the reports from other species. The Arcani have figured out how to make their ships partially invisible to normal matter. The Voltar have developed drives that can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. We started something, but it's become much bigger than us. Jake nodded. Lisa, can we modify our drive to incorporate some of these improvements? I've been working on that. Give me 6 hours and I can make the Defiance more advanced than anything else in space. While Lisa worked on the drive improvements, Jake received a communication from an unexpected source. The message came through channels he didn't recognize, but the translation was clear. Captain Morrison, this is Commander Zextar of the Zilani Liberation Fleet. We have 30 ships equipped with modified human drives. We request permission to join your fight against the Dominion. Similar messages arrived throughout the day. The Arcani wanted to contribute 12 invisible ships. The Voltar offered 8 vessels that could attack from parallel dimensions. Even species that Jake had never heard of were volunteering to join the battle. Captain, Communications Officer Danny Wells reported, we now have confirmation from 47 different species. They're all sending ships to help us. Jake was amazed. In less than 2 weeks, humanity's discovery had sparked a galactic revolution. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years were uniting against the Dominion Empire. Dr. Rodriguez arrived on the Defiance with the latest scientific reports. Captain, we've learned something important. The reason our drive works so well isn't just because we discovered new physics. It's because we approached the problem without fear. What do you mean? Every other species in the galaxy learned science from the Dominion. They were taught that certain things were impossible, dangerous, or forbidden. They built mental barriers that prevented them from seeing obvious solutions. Humanity didn't have those barriers. And now that we've shown them the truth? Dr. Rodriguez smiled. Now they're remembering abilities they never knew they had. The galaxy is waking up, Captain, and the Dominion has no idea how to deal with species that aren't afraid of the impossible. Jake looked at his crew. These 23 people had volunteered for what seemed like a suicide mission. Instead, they had started a revolution that was reshaping the galaxy. All right, everyone, Jake said. It looks like we're not fighting this battle alone. Let's go show the Empire what happens when the impossible becomes possible. The Defiance engaged her improved drive and disappeared into the twisted space between dimensions. Behind her, ships from dozens of species followed, each one proof that the age of Dominion rule was ending. The Empire wasn't just shaking now. It was cracking apart. The Dominion capital world had never seen so many ships in one place. Over 1,000 vessels surrounded the planet in concentric rings, creating a defensive formation that had taken weeks to arrange. Emperor Carthun stood in his command center, watching displays that showed the most powerful fleet in galactic history. Admiral Zixathera, the Emperor said to his military commander, "Are you certain this force can stop the human alliance?" The Admiral's confidence had been shaken by recent defeats, but he tried to sound assured. "Your Majesty, we have overwhelming numbers. Even if the enemy ships are individually superior, they cannot possibly stand against this concentration of firepower." Emperor Carthun wasn't convinced. Reports from across the galaxy told of Dominion fleets being destroyed by forces they couldn't even properly detect. The humans and their allies moved through space like ghosts, appearing where they chose, striking without warning, then vanishing before retaliation was possible. Science Officer Kelnoth, the Emperor called. "What is the status of our attempts to understand human technology?" Kelnoth's tentacles writhed nervously. "Your Majesty, we've made little progress. Every time we think we understand their principles, they demonstrate new capabilities that shouldn't exist. Yesterday, an Arcani ship phased through solid matter to attack one of our research stations. This morning, a Voltar vessel appeared to exist in 17 different locations simultaneously. Are you telling me that we still don't understand how they're doing this? Your Majesty, I believe they're not just using different technology. They're using different physics. They've discovered aspects of reality that our science never knew existed." Before the Emperor could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the command center. The massive display screen showed space around the capital world beginning to ripple and twist. "Admiral," a sensor operator called out, "we're detecting massive space-time distortions. Something very large is coming through." The Human Alliance fleet materialized in a spectacular display of twisted light and impossible geometry. Ships appeared from directions that didn't exist, emerging from dimensions that Dominion science said were fictional. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking at the largest enemy fleet he had ever seen. His own forces were vastly outnumbered, but numbers didn't matter when you could rewrite the rules of engagement. "All Allied ships, this is Captain Morrison," he said over the communication channels. "Remember, we're not here to destroy the Dominion. We're here to prove that their way of thinking is obsolete." The response came from dozens of species, each speaking in their own language, but united in purpose. Commander Zextar of the Zelani fleet reported 30 ships ready for action. The Arcani commander announced that 12 invisible vessels were already in position. The Voltar declared that their 8 multidimensional ships were prepared to demonstrate the true nature of reality. Admiral Tony Martinez, now commanding humanity's expanded fleet, coordinated the attack from the converted battleship Freedom. Like all human vessels, it had been retrofitted with the latest improvements to the Morrison drive. "Admiral Zixathera is hailing us," reported Communications Officer Danny Wells. "Put him through," Jake replied. The alien admiral's image appeared on the main screen, his expression a mixture of anger and confusion. "Captain Morrison, you are vastly outnumbered. Surrender now and your deaths will be swift." Jake smiled. "Admiral, you still don't understand what's happening here. This isn't about numbers. This is about the difference between fighting against reality and working with it. Your philosophical nonsense cannot overcome superior firepower." "Let me show you something," Jake said. He nodded to Lisa Park, who engaged the Defiance's new multi-dimensional drive system. The ship didn't just disappear from normal space, it began existing in parallel realities simultaneously. On the Dominion sensors, the Defiance appeared as hundreds of ships spread across impossible distances. Each image was real, each one capable of independent action. Admiral? Jake's voice came from every direction at once. You're trying to fight an enemy that exists in dimensions you don't understand. How do you aim at a target that's everywhere and nowhere? Admiral Zixathara ordered his fleet to open fire, but the result was chaos. Energy beams meant for the Defiant struck other Dominion ships instead. The human vessel existed in spaces between normal coordinates, untouchable and omnipresent. Across the battle zone, Allied ships were demonstrating their own impossible abilities. The Arcani vessels phased through Dominion hulls like ghosts, appearing inside enemy ships to destroy them from within. The Voltar ships attacked from parallel dimensions, their weapons striking targets that couldn't fire back. The Zilani had discovered something even more remarkable. Their ships could manipulate the energy fields that held matter together, causing Dominion vessels to simply fall apart at the molecular level. Emperor Carthun watched his magnificent fleet being systematically dismantled by forces that operated outside every law of physics he had ever known. Your Majesty, Science Officer Kelnoth said urgently, we must surrender. Our weapons cannot affect them, but they can destroy us at will. Surrender? The Dominion has never surrendered. Your Majesty, the Dominion has never faced an enemy that could ignore the basic laws of reality. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 3 hours. The 1,000-ship Dominion fleet was reduced to scattered debris and fleeing survivors. Not a single Allied vessel had been damaged. Captain Morrison opened a communication channel to the Imperial Command Center. Emperor Carthun, this is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. Do you wish to discuss terms? The Emperor appeared on screen, his regal bearing now replaced by defeat and confusion. Captain Morrison, I don't understand what I've witnessed today. How is any of this possible? Your Majesty, you've built your entire empire on the assumption that certain things are impossible. You've made laws that forbid research into areas you didn't understand. You've taught entire civilizations to limit themselves, based on your fears. And you've proven us wrong. We've proven that the universe is far stranger and more wonderful than you allowed yourselves to believe. Space and time aren't barriers to overcome. They're tools to use, friends to work with. Emperor Carthun was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of 12,000 years of certainty crumbling. Captain Morrison, what do you want from the Dominion? Nothing, Your Majesty. We don't want to rule your empire or destroy your people. We just want to be free to explore the universe without your limitations. And the other species? Those who joined your alliance? They want the same thing. Freedom to discover what they're capable of without being told it's impossible. The Emperor looked around his command center at the officers and scientists who had served the Dominion faithfully for centuries. They all looked lost, their fundamental understanding of reality shattered in a few hours. Science Officer Kelnoth, the Emperor said, in your professional opinion, is it possible for the Dominion to adapt to these new realities? Kelnoth's reply was honest. Your Majesty, we would have to abandon everything we thought we knew and start over. We would have to admit that species we considered primitive were actually more advanced than us in ways we never imagined. Captain Morrison, the Emperor said, turning back to the communication channel, would you be willing to teach us? Would your alliance help the Dominion learn these new physics? Jake looked around his bridge at the crew that had started this revolution. They had gone from desperately trying to save humanity to offering hope to their former enemies. Your Majesty, we'll teach anyone who wants to learn, but you'll have to give up the idea that knowledge should be limited or controlled. You'll have to accept that the universe is bigger and stranger than anyone can imagine. Emperor Carthun nodded slowly. Captain, I formally dissolve the Dominion's claims over human space and all allied territories. Our species will need time to understand what you've shown us, but we accept that our old ways of thinking were wrong. The Emperor's final transmission echoed across the galaxy. To all beings who seek knowledge, the age of limitation is over. The universe awaits your discoveries. Jake turned to his crew. 23 people who had volunteered for what seemed like a hopeless mission had just changed the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. Well done, everyone, he said. I think we've accomplished our mission. Chief Engineer Lisa Park looked at her instruments, which were showing space-time readings that would have been impossible just weeks earlier. Captain, I think our mission is just beginning. Now that we know what's possible, imagine what we might discover next. Captain Morrison looked out at the stars, no longer seeing barriers and limitations but infinite possibilities. The empire had shaken, the old laws had fallen, and in their place rose a universe where the only limit was imagination. Humanity had refused to accept the impossible, and in doing so had made everything possible,